All right, let's go. All right. I know you want to speak about Gilles Gilbert.
Gilles Gilbert, he was your goalie in Boston for all 5 years. Unfortunately,
we did have our differences.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know what, Dad? I mean, I guess I'm going to stick up for Gilly. I mean, the year before you got there, he was their number one goalie, right? And then
went to the finals.
He was a golden boy, the whole deal. And he's probably your number one goalie, your first year there. Then all of a sudden, what?
The year before, when he went to the finals, he had CCM. And then he goes to Lang. And remember he had, and I think, geez, I mean, can't he wait 1 year? He would keep in the CCM.
Yeah, but he probably got an endorsement after such a good year before.
I know.
Did you resent him getting the money?
No, I didn't. The very first game was 9-3.
Yeah, that would say first impressions, right? So he lets in 9 goals the first game. That's first impressions, right?
So what I was trying to make the point, Dad, is that then a third into the season, Jerry Cheevers, your old buddy from Rochester, comes onto the team, and now he is number one goalie, and he's Gilly's number 2.
Well, I know one thing, that Gilly set a record, 17 straight games.
Yeah, 17 consecutive games without a loss. Like, not in a row, but like he'd play a game and then Cheevers would play 3, then you'd throw him and then he'd win. So
I think the players realized that I'd throw him in. Say we played 3 games in 3 nights. He'd play the third game if it was...
So he didn't have too many cakewalks.
He never had, and in those 17 wins he never had one cakewalk. Every one was a tough game.
So you're saying if you knew you were probably going to lose the game, it's the last game of a long road trip, you'd throw in Gilly.
Yeah, you had a feeling if you were going to lose,
how could he not resent that?
I remember one time, I just thought of it now. We were in Pittsburgh, and Cheevers had won the first 2. So the third game, you usually use...
In the playoffs, so this is first game back in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
And Danny Canny comes to me, he says, Cheevers has got to play the game. Well, what are you talking about? Cheevers probably had a hot dog before the game, knowing him. And he says, come and take a look at Gilly. And Gilly was covered in hives. He had all red hives. And Cheevers played that game. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he stole the game.
We never should have. We won 3-0, I think, and it was unbelievable. Gilly set a record of 17 straight games.
17 consecutive games. But here's the thing, Dad. Too, when he was playing with you on that 1 year that he set that record, you know what his record was?
No.
33, 8, and 10.
Yeah,
I must have been nuts. I mean, I really must have.
Maybe he won the games to spite you.
Oh, for sure he did.
Was that your psychological logic there?
No,
then?
I never thought that way. I didn't realize that he had such a record as that. That had to be nuts not to play him.
Yeah, well, his record for you the whole time was 101 wins, 52 losses, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
No, the couple of things I remember about Gilly was. I remember he got into a fight with Dan Bouchard in Atlanta.
That was a beauty.
And they both had long blonde hair. They were both good-looking guys. They had long hair, and the hair was flying. And boy, did they... maybe the second best goalie fight I've ever seen.
Yeah, and the best one I ever saw was Potvin and Hextall. Hextall, yeah. That was a pretty good one, too.
That was good. Wasn't Bouchard and Gilly was as good as that one.
But I tell you, boy, they were really throwing them. And there were 2 French guys, too.
Yeah, boy, they didn't like if guys fight that you could tell that they were really mad. Like, they were really mad. And, I remember we were just shocked that, because Gilly's he was kind of a laid-back guy.
Yeah,
And then I remember the time
was he good looking, I'll tell you who.
He was.
Well, when's the first time we saw him?
Well, I remember, Dad, I think maybe this could have bugged you about him. We were in Hawaii, and you saw him laying on the beach with his new wife, and Mom says, "Who's that?" that's our starting goalie getting prepared for the season, coming up season. And I knew right there and then you might have had it in for him.
Well,
remember the time you guys were like doing you guys were doing breakaways?
yeah.
And remember you went in on him?
Oh, yeah. And he tripped me. He tripped me on purpose. He did. He tripped me on purpose, and I went head first right into the boards. Boy, I wonder I didn't break my neck. and nobody moved. And
so I said, you know what happened next. So you got up and said, okay, shots of the goalie. You went, Rattel, you're with Cheever. Schmatzy, you're with Gilly. And you heard
bing, ding, off the glass.
Crossbar, off the glass.
Well, anyhow, Gilly, he won the game for us, and when he played well.
Yeah, so just kind of go back. It was I guess this was been the third time that we'd met Montreal in the playoffs. So get that. I kind of looked at that when we met Montreal in the playoffs. You know what the record was in the playoffs when we kept meeting them in the 4 years they won the Stanley Cup? 48-10. And out of those 10 losses, the Bruins beat them 5 times. So they were just they were just on a roll. But it's 79.
And excuse me, Tim. I thought they lost one game at home.
They did, yeah.
That was
year.
us. We beat them at home.
They lost 8 games all year.
I bet you started. It would be interesting to stat if you started Gilly in Montreal that one game.
No.
Yeah, I was just saying. So it's 79. We're in the semifinals. Whoever wins this going to beat New York for the Stanley Cup. We lose the first 2 games with Cheevers and Ed at Montreal, and you go what's your thought process to put Gilly in?
Well, first of all, I knew he had a contract coming up. And he's playing in Montreal, French, and he wants to show how good he is. And boy, he almost did it.
Yeah.
If Gilles Gilbert doesn't score that goal from the left side coming down or the right side coming down,
and if you watch, I was watching some old games of that series, Lafleur must have known something because he must have shot that shot. I bet you at least 10 times during that series, right along the ice on the far post.
Skip it.
And so you look and you go, that's the goal that beat him. So it looks like Cheevers, he went in and he rifled it high on Cheevers all the time if you saw him. But with Gilly, he put it right along the ice, that far corner all the time.
And just cut the inside of the coast. A minute 40 to go. Well, I know we had our differences, but I'll tell you one thing, he could stop a puck. And I remember Harry coming to me, he says, how come Gilly's using so many sticks? And what he used to do, he used to get about 8 sticks and break them during practice. He thought he was hurting me. He wasn't hurting me. And the girls sweeping up above, sweeping the
cleaning crew.
Eh?
The cleaning crew.
Yeah, the cleaning crew. They were up there cleaning. And the pucks are just bing, zing.
Yeah, he kind of put him up. He wasn't going to hit him, but he just scared him every once in a while with the big bang. Because when the Gardens was empty, and the seats, the bottom of the seats were like metal, and boy, the pucks would hit. They'd just go. Yeah.
Anyhow, he was a good guy, and he could stop pucks. And though we had our differences, he could still stop pucks.
So Cindy and Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook, and if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they match your deposit up to $250. They give you 10 spins on the big wheel for some big dough. On your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25, and they've been a big supporter of the Don Cherry Pet Rescue. And we'd like to thank them. And right now, you want to know what the Stanley Cup odds are?
What?
Carolina is favored. Carolina Hurricanes are favored, followed by the New Jersey Devils and the Toronto Maple Leafs, both at 10-1. Avalanche and then Oilers at 11-1. So they're the top. I thought Pittsburgh might have went up after they got Carlson, but they didn't. So,
but Avalanche, and they got them down in third to win the cup.
Yeah.
No,
So they got the Canes and Devils. I don't know about the Devils, but the Canes look pretty good. So we'll see if a bunch of jerks win the cup next year.
Well, we'll see.
So, Cindy, you got the next question?
Yes. Jamie S. from Facebook. He wants to ask you, Dad, there is a video on YouTube called The Most Violent Man in Hockey. And it's about Larry Zeidel, but there is also a lot of articles about Connie Madigan. Connie Mad Dog Madigan, that was his nickname, was the most violent player in hockey. And you played with both of them. So who was
And I room with both of them.
Oh, so now you really know them well.
Come to think of it, I just thought of something. Maybe they thought, but two dum-dums together. I don't know.
Well, maybe they thought you might...
Well, Larry Zeidel wasn't a dum-dum. He was in the stocks.
Yeah, he made a lot of money in the stock market.
Yeah. He was pretty smart. He was just violent. Well, I remember him and Shaq.
Oh, yeah, that big stick fight they had in Boston. But if you look into it, remember there's that famous picture of them all cut up. But they did it in, I think it was St. Catharines. They had a stick fight, and they both got thrown out. And then they went at it in the stands, and they both got thrown in jail.
Yeah, and I remember Larry Zeidel. The boy was he. He was a violent guy, and I remember I come up from junior, and I was sitting beside a guy. And there was two brothers. I forget their names. Anyhow, he said, I'm going to get that guy. He was all cut, and he was cut on the side.
Larry cut him with a stick?
Yeah, he cut him with the stick, and the blood was pouring out of him. And I'm sitting there looking at him. I'm just a 19-year-old kid looking at this guy. And he said, I'm going to get that guy. He says, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kill him. He says, hey, you better go and get stitched up. He says, or you're going to bleed to death. You won't be able to get anybody. But
I remember when we had Larry Zeidel in the Grapevine, he told a funny story that you and Ian Cushing were fighting in the penalty box.
Oh, yeah. And he grabbed the door and grabbing the big heavy door and throwing it out on the ice.
He took it off the hinges and threw it on the ice.
Threw it on the ice.
Right. And he said, so in the story he goes, I guess he was a bit older than you. He says, I'm an older guy. He says, I'm come from the tough leagues. And he says, you're a young pup. And you went to Ian Cushing. Do you want to go? And Cushing says, yeah, let's go. You want to go? And he started fighting them. And I looked and I said to the guy next to me, geez, these young players are polite. He goes, my day, you just walk up and you just drift the guy.
Well, that's what we did after. I'd stop asking guys. But I remember he did. He grabbed the door and threw it out there. And so he couldn't sleep at night. He used to go for walks. And he woke me up and he said, see, I told you. He got the morning paper. That's how early he was. And he said, I told you, you're leading me in penalties now. Every league he played in, he liked to lead them in penalties.
Yeah. So tell us the story about Bo Alec. I think that's the tough one.
That was Bo Alec played for Cleveland, and he was supposed to go to New York the next year. He get the puck and he iced the puck and he said, "Go chase it, Larry. Go chase it." So I went to one of the players and I said, "Is he nuts doing that to Larry? I said, does he not know that?"
He just kept dumping it in his corner.
Yeah, he kept dumping in his corner. Go chase it, Larry. Go chase it, Larry. So I went to one of the players and said, "Is he nuts doing that to this guy?" I said, "This guy is nuts." So he did it again. Dumped it in, go chase. And he took his stick and just drove it in his face. I was stunned. I was on the ice with him, and I was stunned. And down he went, and boy, I thought he was dead. I really did. I really thought. I thought this guy is dead. Players and they all come on the ice and of Cleveland players, and they all kind of circle around. And Larry went around the outside of them, and not one guy challenged him to fight or with the stick or anything like that, because they knew this guy was nuts, and I
remember what you told me he was saying to him.
Yeah, he says, "You go chase it, Bull. You go chase the puck. You go chase the puck." Yeah, and not a guy said a word to him on that Cleveland club. Not a guy.
Okay, Dad. Well, then what about Mad Dog Madigan? Now there's a tough guy. And Tim, wasn't he in the movie Slapshot?
Yeah, at the end when they had all the new guys coming out to fight the Slapshot guys, they called him Mad Dog. Yeah, that was Connie Madigan.
And he was. And listen, I played on defense on Spokane. There was Sandy Stone-Faced Huckle, Bill the Destroyer Defense, and there was Mad Dog Madigan and Babyface Cherry.
That was Babyface.
Babyface. So anyhow, we were in this beautiful hotel, and they had this bar called Jack Tar, and they had all different kind of beer, and we were sitting there having a beer, and a kid asked for an autograph, and he signed Con. I said, "That's a good name for you, Con."
Like, did you know him then, or you just?
I didn't know him then. Little did I know, when I got there, he was in jail, believe it or not.
So he thought you were making fun of him.
He thought I was making fun of him. He says, "Yeah, well, let's go outside." And I said, "Okay, let's go outside." And I remember it was pouring in rain, and we were in a used car lot next door, and the police came. Thank goodness the police came. Oh, we didn't. We pushed each other, and we were just going to get into it. Good job I didn't go down. If I had fallen down, he'd put the boots to me. I know it. I know he put the boots to me because he did it to that guy that he was in jail for.
But there was a time. There was one story, and I remember Mom telling the story about what was the guy, Jim something?
Oh, Jim Holdaway.
Yeah, I remember Mom telling the story. It's so. Like, as they say, it's like right out of a movie. Like, Slapshot has nothing.
And when
on
Mom tells a story, you know it's
true.
It's like, wow.
Well, anyhow, here's the story. Connie was living alone, and he was on Christmas. So nobody likes to live alone at Christmas. They like to visit somebody. Anyhow, so he had a couple of bottles of whiskey or rum or something like that.
Because you guys were all living in the same apartment complex,
yeah, like
right?
we were like, I could hear them come up. He knocked on the door and he offered the bottle to Jim, and Jim said, "Oh, thanks, Connie," and closed the door on him. So he comes over to my apartment. And he's absolutely seething. And I remember Rose saying, "Oh, no, take it easy, Connie. They're just newlyweds and they want to be alone."
Yeah, Mom's trying to fuse the situation, right? Best she can.
I'm going to kill him. Yeah. Anyhow, we didn't practice that day because it was Christmas Day. And I remember, Cindy, you don't remember any of this, eh?
I know, I remember it. I remember the following day, the whole apartment building, they all came over, for the women, when their kids came over, the wives came over, and we were all having coffee in the morning. And Mom had the radio on. And I can remember coming over and they said an ambulance was at the hockey practice.
That one of the players got hurt.
And so I remember the moms, and we're all, "Oh, is it our daddy? Is it, I wonder who was hurt." And I think Mom knew who might have been hurt.
I was on the ice with him, and I told Holdaway, I said, "Just stay away from him. Just stay away." And he didn't stay away from him, and he hit him, and blood
knocked out all his teeth.
Blood was everywhere. And they put a towel. I never forgot this. They put a towel around his face, to go off. They had a stretcher and everything, and the blood came through the towel. I never kept it. There was so much blood. So after practice, we stopped at a bar, Steve's Smoke Shop, and Bill Ryan, I remember, was the bartender, and there was only the two of us in there. And I turned to Connie and he said, "I guess the next time you'll invite me in."
So I have to say, so who was the toughest? So can I ask you that? I mean, so the question was, who was the tough? He said the worst.
No, he said most violent. So who's?
No, he said the worst.
The worst, yeah. So who was worse?
So
I can't tell you. They were both. Who was the most violent? I don't know who was the most violent.
You said, though, that somebody had to do something to Larry.
Yeah, you had to do something to Larry. With Connie, you just do it for the fun of doing it.